growing up in the blue tribe, I would say, roughly, and you really do have to speak of America as two different countries at this point, I think, sometimes to understand it. But if you're from the blue tribe, there, just like Christianity is not really on the table as a meta narrative to throw yourself into as a kid looking for meaning, patriotism likewise is
Yeah.
increasingly unavailable.
Yeah. Has been for a long time,
Yeah,
arguably decades.
yeah,
In Europe, it's decades. In America, it's more recent years. But yeah.
right. This goes to something you've talked about in the West, which is or in the past, which is the West's lack of confidence in itself.
Yes.
And this is an issue. It's difficult to talk about this because on the one hand, I've always felt that my country, right or wrong, is not the right ethos, right? Like
Mm.
you want to hold your country to the fire on the things that it's genuinely lagging behind on.
Yeah.
And so I've always felt that if patriotism means, well, I'm just for my country, period,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what is actually true about my country, that's something I've never felt comfortable with.
Mm.
On the other hand, if I just look at what's true about
Mm.
how do people vote with their feet in the world, where do they want to come?
Mm-hmm.
If we're just judging neutrally,
Yeah, it's unarguable.
America has to be among the most
Mm.
amazing places to live in the world.
Yeah.
Like something is going right here.
Yes.
All of the black and brown migrants around the world want to come here first before
Yeah.
anywhere else.
Yeah.
And there's something, that fact just the America described by the woke left
Mm.
seems so different than the America that black and brown people all over the world are leaving everything
Yeah.
behind for. And so I just seek some kind of coherence, some kind of accurate description of the country that is not reflexive, but is
That's right. I mean, the first task, by the way, when you mentioned, your generation and growing up, of course, one of the things that's on my mind is during that time, it's so important that people actually get a reasonable view of what happened the day before they arrived in the world. And I'm not sure that people of your generation, if I may say so, not to sound too ancient, but I think a lot of people of your generation don't actually have an accurate idea of what the world was like before they came along. By the way, this isn't their fault. There is a deranging trend in history books and in the media that presents the world in a very unsatisfactory way at the moment, that is rewriting the past and redoing the past, apart from anything else, in a tone of extraordinary ignorance, in my observation. We continually have news stories, for instance, in my own country, in Britain, and I think it happens here, which presented as if we didn't have prominent black intellectuals, artists, thinkers, musicians, and much more until now. I have this pet obsession over when the soprano Jessie Norman died last year. It was presented by the BBC and other news media as if there was something absolutely amazing about the fact that she was black. And that hadn't been amazing or interesting for decades.
Mm.
She recorded Wagner with Karajan in the 1970s. Yeah. If Karajan didn't have a problem with that in the 1970s, I don't know why news media does in 2020, or presents it as if there is something like that going on, something surprising. And we keep on having stories presented like this. It happens on all of the identity.
Well, it's happening with Kamala Harris right now. Like the notion that it's amazing that there's a black vice president.
Right.
So she's broken through. That's so strange to me, obviously, because we had a black president for 2 terms. And so there is this really strange dynamic that also gets under my skin of the moment some genuine gain happens, a black person or a woman breaks through in an area where it actually has never been done before, like the presidency. Before it happens, everyone says it's impossible. Right? If you remember before Obama, everyone was saying the country's not ready. The country is too racist for this black man named Barack Hussein Obama.
Yeah.
And that's a prediction based on the model of the country.
Yes.
And then the prediction gets destroyed.
Yeah.
He but the model never changes.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, sometimes it gets worse.
It gets worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I really worry about that. this is something I've run into when we're talking about the attitude towards the past is
Mm.
incredibly important.
Yes. By the way, there's an important, and I think quite deep thing that can be, to address the sort of Yasha Monk question. But there's an important and deep thing that can be addressed here, or should be addressed, which is precisely over this issue of the attitude towards the past. Do you look at the past, including the past in your own country, as a thing to sort of hack through in order to find injustices in it, and then sort of burnish something about yourself from it? For instance, by presenting yourself as better than your forebears. Or do you find a way to reconcile yourself with the past and indeed understand the past in its own terms, as well as on your own in the area you find yourself? My own view is that since every human being to some degree, various degrees, finds themselves bemused in the universe, finding the correct attitude towards what went before you, as well as what's happening around you, is absolutely crucial. And that the narrative of oppression, the narrative of progress, by the way, which I'm not an enormous fan of as a view of history, but the idea of progress that ends with the brilliant arrival of you is an unedifying way to view the past, not least because it can't reconcile you with it. And this means that almost everybody in the past fails to come up to the standards that you've set for yourself in 2020. Now, I think that, and a lot of thinkers who've persuaded me of this fact, that one of our jobs in life is not to war against the world, but to reconcile ourselves with it. Now, when I say that, of course, some people say, aha, but what about injustice? I mean the things, there will be injustices and there will be things worth struggling with and for. But there is also a requirement to find out where you can reconcile yourself with the world, the past, your forebears. And that's where the issue you touched on of nation, of nationalism, would once have stood. The late Roger Scruton described the importance of nationhood as being that it was the widest way in which you could apply the first person plural. That if you felt you could say we with pride for things you yourself had not actually done, when we did that, then that was a successful use of nationhood. Of course, for all sorts of reasons, that's off the table.